Usually after E3 there's a bit of a lull while we wait for the other games conferences of the year like Gamescom, the Tokyo Game Show and PAX. So it is around this time that I like to go back and play some of the games I've missed over the years. This year I was Saints Row 4, and along with the recently announced Just Cause 3, it kinda got me thinking, games? Why so serious? Back in the mid to late 2000s, pretty much every game followed the same patterns. Serious, gritty shooting, a serious and mostly depressing narrative, environments in various shades of brown and grey. Everything was just a bit dour. Sure, these games were great, some even spectacularly so. But sometimes you don't want to play something that's all super gritty and serious. Sometimes you just want to have a bit of a laugh and play something a little more stupid. The best overall comparison I can make involves the Saints Row series. Now I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Saints Row 1 or 2. Sure, they're as much great fun as you'd expect from a GTA clone, but the controls were just a little bit rubbish. The environment's pretty uninspiring, and the story was just kinda stupid, without any hint of irony or self-awareness. I mean, not even Mila Kunis can make up for it.
Baby, we better call King.
But in 2011, Volition brought us Saints Row the 3rd, and kinda changed everything. I'll admit here, Saints Row the 3rd is one of my favourite games of its generation. Volition decided to change the course for a series struggling to find its own identity, and they had amazing results. The fundamentals were still there, of course. Open world city sandbox, gangs roaming the streets, ever so slightly stupid melodrama, but everything was just so completely ramped up. The story went full metal crazy, with huge set pieces and a much greater sense of self-awareness of how ridiculous everything was. The combat was amplified, and a whole load of totally unrealistic new weapons were introduced. And the core gameplay was expanded, with new gameplay introduced that completely forgot about reality altogether. Saints Row the 3rd is just a blast to play. You don't need to spend hours grinding to level up your character and collect new loot and perks, or invest in the story or the characters. It's just pure, unadulterated fun. And sometimes, that's all you want. They then followed that up with Saints Row 4, and quite frankly they thought of every way of making it more ridiculous than the last. Want superhero powers? Sure. Here's infinite super sprinting, hyper jumps, and the ability to shoot fire and ice. Want to throw objects and people around like you've got the Half-Life 2 gravity gun? Well, of course, fire away. Missions akin to levels of Streets of Rage, tanks, and even text adventures? Yeah, seems pretty reasonable to me. And then there's the guns. Here's a list of just some of the weapons you can get in Saints Row 4. A laser energy sword, a dildo bat, an anal probe, an inflatory ray, a telekinetic warp gun, a disintegrator, a black hole singularity launcher, an exploding plunger gun, an abduction ray, and of course the dubstep gun. There just aren't enough games with this kind of inventive madness about them. Wub wub.
Just like Johnny
Going under the radar a bit at this year's spectacular E3 was the coverage given to Just Cause 3. Despite an outright dire showing from Square Enix, Just Cause 3 managed to still show off how ridiculous and bombastic it is, which I guess isn't too difficult when you look at it. Whereas most publishers send their most PR-trained staff to talk about their latest engine developments and sell you the only USP they could think of, Avalanche Studios brought their lead designer, who basically showed off how stupid everything in his game is, and how much fun you can actually have. And thank God, to be honest with you. Incredible stunts, unrealistic grappling hook and parachute retraction, virtually constant explosions and magnificent destructive capabilities is just a small part of the madness you can have with this game. It sort of makes you wonder, why can't I do this in every other game? This is a staple of the Just Cause series, unlike the evolution that we've seen in the Saints Row franchise. But what I find remarkable is that these are the only two game franchises that really focus on the fun in their games. I mean, lots of other titles do look at elements of it, but never quite to the same extent. But why? I mean, didn't games just used to be about fun? Well, when they first started out, certainly. Fun little distractions you could have when out and about in town down the arcade, or at home in your living room. Yes, people committed hours to these early games just as we do now. but they were never that serious or dealt with serious subject matter. As technology developed, however, people began to realise the potential of what games and interactive entertainment could bring, as storytelling experiences, as depictors and simulators of real life experiences. With that came the deluge of games we saw in that period of brown and grey, to the extent where the barometer by which we judged games wasn't how much fun we had, but how realistic they were. And I just don't agree with that. Yes, realism is great for certain games, and I'm one of the biggest advocates for games as narrative you're likely to meet. But I'm also glad game franchises like Saints Row and Just Cause exist, because sometimes pure chaotic fun is all you really want.
So let's have a few more, and just take life a little bit less seriously.